Hello Internet, and today's video is going to be a Sunday's read. Sunday, you might be asking, why Sunday? It's not even Sunday when you're uploading this video. That doesn't even make any sense. It makes perfect sense. Trust me. First of all, Sunday is the beginning of the week, or the end of the week, depending on where you are and what your calendars look like. Sunday is either the first day of the week or the last day of the week, and therefore the perfect day of the week for the naming title of this. Much better than Friday reads. We're gonna scrap that idea. That's going right in the trash. We're gonna put out Sunday reads, and it's gonna be a lot more fun. So Sunday reads are just videos in which I talk about, maybe weekly or so, about things that I've read, about things that I've watched, in a very chill manner. Because we're not stressing ourselves out in 2019. 2019 is all about me and me not being stressed about things. 2018 was overachiever McReady Pants over there trying to read 260 books, 20 books a month, and killing herself on reading. And this year is just, I'm read when I read, which is almost every day. But we ain't gonna worry about how big my TBR is. We just gonna read the books that I have or that I don't have. And I'm just not gonna worry about accomplishing some goal in mind. So currently my Goodreads goal is only 20 books. It will increase by 20 every time I finish 20 books. My whole goal here in this year is just to read books when they fall in front of my face. I read every day. Every day. That's not going to change. Alright? So why am I stressing myself out about which books I read every day? Or about what I read every day? It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because if we had a winning competition about who reads the most, I would always win. So who am I competing with? No one. No one. So we're just going to talk about books that I read. So here we go. Let's get started. What are some books that I read? There's a couple. I've started off pretty good. There's a couple books I want to talk about. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. This is the first book. This is Hidden Oracle. This is a part of Rick Riordan's Greek mythology set, and this takes place in some time. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let me rethink that. This is about the god Apollo, who has been cast out of Olympus because his father is angry at him, and he has been turned into a mortal and now must complete some very dangerous trials to earn back his godlyhood. In the course of this book, there are trials, tribulations, and whining. It's a fairly good time with a lot of irritating plot points, and it's okay? It's alright, but there's some discrepancies. If I were to rank this on my Rick Riordan what's my favorite list, this is probably a little bit ahead of Titan's Curse and Lost Hero, which are infamously two of my least favorite Rick Riordan books. Titan's Curse because I'm extremely biased against that certain book in the Percy Jackson series, and Lost Hero because that was a boring book. But this one was pretty okay, other than the fact that every other character other than Apollo was a raging idiot. Not quite sure what was going on there with Uncle Rick. I don't know why. I got a few theories. But other than that, it was a pretty entertaining book, and I am interested to see what is going on next in this series, which is not in fact a trilogy, which I had originally thought, but is in fact a series with a fourth book coming out this year. I had a goal in 2018 of reading every Rick Riordan book that I owned, and I accomplished most of that goal. I skimmed a little there at the end with the Apollo series, and that's why this is a 2019 book and not a 2018 book, and that's why I still got the rest of the Apollo series, but I'm gonna pat myself on the shoulder anyway, because I achieved my goal. That's what I did. I didn't know what I was going to say there. I don't know. but that's what I'm gonna go with. Next, we have What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. Becky Albertalli is known for fluffy contemporary books, and Adam Silvera is known for ripping out your heart. So this book could only be a confusing bout of emotions as the two authors battled it out on whether or not they were supposed to make us feel joy or crush our souls. Luckily, Becky told Adam he couldn't kill characters in this book, so there are no deaths. But there is a lot of angst, awkwardness, and secondhand embarrassment to go around. This book is about Benjamin and Arthur, two boys who have a lovely meet cute at a post office in New York and decide they're gonna make it work and have a fast and intense relationship in a span of a couple months because Arthur needs to go back home soon because he lives in Georgia, not New York. He's just there for vacation. So let us see how these two boys, who couldn't be more different than each other, try to work their way through a successful relationship in their young boy years. This is a fairly decent book. Like I said, a lot of secondhand embarrassment there. And thankfully, the ending was pretty tame for an Adam Silvera book and devastating if it was a Becky Albertalli book. I'm pretty sure Becky just said, break their hearts, but don't rip out their souls, and you can't kill anyone. And Adam's like, watch me try to do this without killing anyone. And he did it without killing anybody. But he still managed to rip out our souls in the end, while Becky poured a soothing salve over it so that we could have hopeful dreams of the future. It was a pretty decent book, like I said. If you want a book where teenagers are teenagers who cuss and talk about memes and make references to their favorite things, and here you are. If you want a book about relationships and friendships and how to have conversations that are really, really hard, but you're probably just gonna have to grow up and have those conversations anyway instead of assuming stuff and just getting angry and stomping off, then read this book. It's a pretty good book, pretty nice. That secondhand embarrassment though, that's really rough. Like, know what you're getting into before you start dealing with those fools. Next book I read was In an Absent Dream by Shauna Maguire. This was the fourth book in the Wayward Children series. This series is about kids who find doorways to other worlds, worlds that are perfect for them. In this book, we are visiting the world of the Goblin Market and learning the story of Lundy. Lundy is a character who is introduced in the very, very first book of this series. She is the therapist at the Home for Wayward Children that is introduced in that very first book, and she is a woman trapped in a young girl's body, and we finally get to discover how Lundy came to be at the home for these wayward children and why her story is so tragic that she ended up here. Now, of course, because you are fairly aware of Lundy being a member of the Wayward Children Home, which deals solely with students and children who are suffering from home deprivation, I'm going to say portal deprivation, who are still looking for that doorway home, you knew her story was probably not going to be the happiest of endings. So Lundy goes to the Goblin Market. The Goblin Market here is all based on fairness. It's based on fair value and trading things at a fair value. And here it is made very clear that fairness is subjective to the individual and not objective. So what might cost $1 for one person and be nothing might mean everything to another person. So you cannot just make one fixed price. It has to be priced for the individual so that we do everything based on fairness. It is a fairly enjoyable yet very heartbreaking book when we come to the end of it, and how sadly things end for Lundy. Nothing so tragic as to fall hand to your own mistakes and misdeeds. The next 3 books that I read were all part of a trilogy, and that was the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Piscatios. Don't know how to say that without tripping my tongue. Her name is Piscat, not Piscatios. She isn't some weird pasta dish, even though I wonder what Piscatios would taste like. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to Google search that, see if something interesting comes up. But the Captive Prince trilogy is one that is brimful of opposition, of fights in the fandoms and the non-fans, who hates this book, who loves this book, all with very good reasons, and I can clearly see both sides. This book had some pretty horrible things in it that could be depicted as toxic and horrible, while also being fairly addictive and enjoyable. Where I land on the scale, probably a little more to likable on the scale. Not insanely in love with this series, but definitely enjoyable and addictive. This series takes place in a high fantasy world in which there are two princes, not princesses. In this case, they are princes from two countries who have a bit of bad history between them. Now, our two main characters are Laurent of Kingdom A and Damien of Kingdom B. Now, they are eventually going to have a very gay romantic relationship, but we're not gonna get there yet in the first book. So the whole thing of this book is that they both have horrible backstories and the countries between them, but also there is some political stuff going down. Damien has just been betrayed by his older brother, his kingdom has been put in turmoil with a new king crowned, and he is thought of dead by all of his countrymen. Laurent has yet to become king in his country because his brother and father were killed in a war with Damien's country long ago when he was a kid, so now he is waiting for the day in which he'll be crowned king. He has 10 months to do it, however, his uncle, the regent, is bound to stand in his way. Now, a devious plan was set that Damien would be given to Laurent as a sex slave. Of course, not told that he was the prince of another kingdom, but instead passed off as a common soldier who was now inducted into this slick slavery thing that they have going on in this world, and that is how their romantic relationship begins. Not really, that's how their relationship as two individuals begins, but that's not how their romantic relationship begins. So, of course, there are going to be a lot of problems for people when it comes to this series, as this book does take place in a world in which rape, sex slavery, and keeping people for sexual pleasure is a normalized thing. However, I would like to make the argument and point that while these things are normalized for the sake of this fictional world, they are never stated to be an okay or right thing to do, and their main characters are sure to talk about how horrible these things are in later books and as it is going on. It is made very clear that the author nor the characters in which we are supposed to emulate and like are fans of this system, or they come to learn that they shouldn't be fans of the system because of how degrading it can be. So I would say that I can perfectly see anybody's problems with this series. However, I do not think that the author is intending it to be toxic, is intending for the toxic nature of this world or of the beginning relationships of our two leads to be thought of highly. Right? I think there is a difference between books like our beginning YA, like 50 Shades of Grey or like Twilight, in which there are toxic relationships that are depicted and then praised, versus what is done in Captive Prince, where there are toxic relationships that are used for the purpose of the story, but later frowned upon and thought of as bad. So I think those are very different. So I think that anybody who dislikes the books has every reason to dislike the book. However, I think you have to take into account whether or not the intention or inattention or unintention was to praise the toxicity of the lit world. While there are plenty of books who unintentionally praise toxic relationships and toxic worlds, I do not think this is one of those books that do. It's just a book in which, unfortunately, horrible things are normalized, but are discussed as being negative things that shouldn't be the norm of the world. So, those are the books that I've read so far. I did like them. So far, it has been a pretty good year. I haven't disliked or really hated any books so far. We gonna change that though. Not intentionally. Well, sort of intentionally. I do have plans for what books I hate that I will be reading for viewing pleasure. But so far, everything I've read, I have not rated poorly. I have enjoyed fairly well. So that is it for this right here. If you have any suggestions for books that I should look into coming out later this year, tell me now so I can look into them, get excited, and then buy them. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Click all those bunny bunnies down below, and goodbye, Internet.